Greetings. My name is Letitia Hensley, and I'm the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Director of Family and Community Engagement. We are excited that you are joining us today and know you will gain great insight from this session. At the conclusion of today's session, please provide feedback so that we can continue to support you with amazing sessions that will be provided throughout the year. Now, without further ado, we'll turn it over to our presenters.
Good evening, everyone. Whoa, all right. One more time. Now listen, y'all, this is the evening session. Everybody did a lot of things today, so I need you to be with me as much as possible, okay? I know it's really annoying people do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing? Woo! Yes, that I appreciate. My name is Christopher Lacey Thompson, and I work out of the Office of Accountability, and we are from the School Improvement and Data Integration team. I have two of my lovely colleagues here with me. We do all things school data, all the way from district data to intermediate data. We look at student data, and so we're here to talk a little bit about school improvement and data. School improvement, which is a data-driven, data-based process. I was talking to my older sister, she's a pre-K teacher, and she's like, well, what do you get to present on? She's like, that's so exciting. I say, we're gonna present on school improvement data. She says, whoa, that's riveting. She said, good luck, but I know it's gonna go good, because we have a lot to say that are good things. So I have two colleagues here with me. And like I said, you see, I'm Christopher Lacey Thompson. I'm a data specialist. Had a couple different roles. I was an elementary school teacher. I was an assistant principal. And now I get to do lovely things like this. And I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Williams. I have the pleasure of being part of this wonderful, dynamic team. The School Improvement and Data Integration Department is where we serve out of. Prior to this role, I also was an assistant principal, did some great school turnaround work where I managed a $2 million grant out of the NC Department of Instruction and did some school reform work, which was really great. And prior to me coming out of the classroom, I served as an exceptional children's teacher, and I taught students with special needs, and my last assignment as a classroom teacher was the best highlight of my career. It's where I taught students in a self-contained classroom setting who had autism. So that is just a little bit about myself. So I have a wide variety of knowledge of students and types of students. So.
Melissa Teal. I'm also a member of the city team. My background comes from high school and middle school. I was a high school teacher and a middle school teacher, and I taught a program here in CMS called AVID, and that's the program aimed to get kids into college should they choose that path. And I also did a lot of work in turnaround schools. Almost actually every one of my schools was turnaround. And I also served as an assistant principal at our district's largest pre-K-8 in the district and the state's largest pre-K-8. So that is us in a nutshell.
Good.
We're excited for this evening.
Thank you for sharing. Y'all just be turning around over there. So here are our objectives for today. Today we're gonna talk about explain why schools analyze data, explain why it's best practice to use a data analysis protocol when analyzing data, and we're gonna identify practice using a data analysis protocol. And there are gonna be a couple different things that we'll talk about as we talk about data and we talk along the way. Before we begin, we do wanna do a little connection before content. So what's gonna happen is when I stop talking, I'm gonna give everyone in the room about 60 seconds, and I want you to choose which of these 90s sitcoms do you feel like today? And we're checking in on how we feel today. Which sitcom are you and why? Okay? Exactly 60 seconds to think about it. Ooh. Can you help me? Okay, in just a second, I'm gonna ask, so everybody prepares themselves, I'm gonna ask if we have any brave souls willing to talk in the room and say which sitcom they are, okay? I'll go first, and so when you share, it could sound something a little bit like this. So today, I feel like sitcom number one, which is Home Improvement. We live in a world of school improvement plans. I'm trying to get a little bit better every day and make some mistakes today that I won't make tomorrow. So home improvement is my sitcom of the day. Is there anybody brave in the space who's willing to share which sitcom they feel like? Please, somebody humor me.
All right, I mean,
Yes, thank you.
all right. My name is Champ Franklin, and I feel like In Living Color
Why?
because I am now alive and in color, being able to help schools improve the data when it comes to the mindsets, improving the mindsets of the students so that they're actually focused on coming to school and being a part of the process of applying into the school career.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
So live and in color.
Live and in color, I appreciate it. Everybody snap for him, please. Snap with me. Thank you for sharing. It takes bravery to share in this space. Anybody else brave? We don't want to leave you out.
I'll go off of that. I'm Bruna Slay. I'm feeling a living color as well, but more the homie don't play that card. For those of you who remember. Feeling that exactly, but also family matters because
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm in a transition, so homie don't play that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. We're gonna keep moving unless anybody else y'all want to share. No? Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So, in our content for today, I think I'm going to skip that for now. I'll come back to it. So, when we talk about school improvement plans, and when we talk about school improvement, you'll hear mention of something called NC Star, which is in the InduStar platform. So, NC Star is powered by InduStar, and it's a web-based tool that guides a district or school improvement team as it's charting its improvement and managing the continuous improvement process. In a world of school improvement, all across our state, you'll hear lots of talk about NC Star, NC Star, NC Star. More than anything else, NC Star is how our schools document all their improvement efforts. They document their goals, they document their targets. This is how they document everything that they're doing to improve school day by day or year by year, right? So NC Star is our statewide platform, has lots of indicators and lots of things in it that we use to document how we're going to improve school. Like the school improvement work, NC Star is a database-based platform to drive a database process. So, being about school improvement plans, in our district we have some key indicators. And so indicators are these things that when people, they've done research and they say these are the actions that drive school and make school really strong. In our district, and so these are at the state level, right? The state just puts out these indicators. In our school district, we have lots of key indicators that say these are the strong actions that drive school improvement. These are the strong things that are going to make our schools great and make them better than they were. So you can read each one of those. So for example, instructional teams develop standard aligned units. So what this is saying, when we say it's a key indicator, we're saying that this is something key that schools do in a really, really strong way to grow their students and continuously improve. We think about maybe 4B 3.03. The principal monitors curriculum and classroom instruction regularly and provides timely, clear, and constructive feedback. So in a world where schools are operating in their highest function, that's something that principals do. So I think indicators is kind of a funky name, right? But when we think about an indicator, we think about what are the key actions that a school does. And this is what all our schools are aspiring to. So in the continuous improvement process, when we think about the continuous improvement process, school improvement process, and we think about using data to grow and change our schools, all of this lives in a cyclical plan. So in the times of June to October, all of our school administrators and school leadership teams sit down and say, and they reflect upon their data from last year. 2, they identify where they want to be and think about what goals and what actions are going to get us to the next step. Does that make sense? So during the summer, all the way through October, a principal and whoever they decide at the table, usually their school improvement team, sit down and say, we were here, we're trying to get to a new place. What actions are we going to take to get there? Does that make sense to everybody? So So when we think about this, we think about just planning. Over the summer, our schools plan. Then from September to June, throughout the entirety of the school year, our schools do all this work. So I want you to kind of think about this as something that's going on in the background. So teachers are teaching every day. Instructional assistants are assisting every day. Principals are leading every day. Going on in the background, though, are all these other things that we're doing to make our schools better and better and better each time. And all this happens all year long. So we plan, we do, and we check. Here's where the data comes in. While we plan and while we do this plan, while all these things are going on in the background to make sure that we're getting better and better, we collect data along the way to see how we're doing. So you'll remember me saying that this is a data-driven process. So our schools are constantly collecting numbers. They're constantly student achievement numbers, numbers related to teacher effectiveness, numbers related to walking through classrooms as we check the plan to see if it's working. And after we check the plan, we do some ongoing adjustment. We check again. In true cyclical nature, we start with the plan, we start doing some things, we use the data to see if those things are working, and then we go back and adjust the plan. Every school does this all year long, right? On top of the teaching, right? On top of the communication, on top of the planning. Every school does this all year long, and it's all captured in NC STAR. And if I need to talk faster, y'all tell me. So when we think about school improvement plans and think about the data that schools use, there are tons of data that schools look at, right? So it's not just test scores, but test scores are often used. It's not just the district assessments that match our curriculum, but those things are often used, right? It's not just DIBELS, it's not just our growth data, but there's lots of different assessment data that schools look at. So you'll remember that I said we make a plan, and then we start implementing the plan. We use the data to check how we're doing. There are lots of different data sources a school could use. We think graduation rate in our high schools, suspension rates, parent surveys, student surveys, the working conditions, the ACT. There are all kinds of things that data that schools can look at to make this, and they come in big categories. So academic data, how are you doing with the standards and the content? Attendance data, are you there or not? Behavior data speaks for itself, and social emotional data as well. So we use all those data sets to progress monitor. So progress monitor, a word we love to use in education. You know, we have all kinds of jargon. If you've been in any school, you know we have all kinds of words. Progress monitor is a word we love to have and we love to use. And sometimes people conflate what it actually means, but it's pretty straightforward. When we progress monitor, we are monitoring our progress on this plan. When we progress monitor, we're looking at our data to see how are we doing at our plan. So a progress monitoring is like a GPS. Frequent trace of progress to goal will increase the likelihood that we end up at our destination. If we think about using our GPS on our phone, right? Most of the time, when we need our GPS, we don't start the GPS and then put it down. At least not me, because I'll get lost. But if we start the GPS, we check the GPS to make sure we're making the right turns. We drive a little more. We drive a little more. We check our GPS to see if we're making the right turn, and we drive a little more. And that's one way to think about how we're doing this continuous improvement process all across the year, okay? So that's like a big overarching frame. When we think about school improvement planning, when we think about the continuous improvement process, right? So everybody, every aspect of the district is doing this continuous improvement thing. In our district, we have a strategic plan. At schools, we have a school improvement plan. We as staff members have professional development plans. We all have these cycles of getting better that we follow, and this one relates specifically to the school. So my colleague Lisa is going to talk for a little bit, and we're going to explore some of this data.
All right, thank you, Chris. So as Chris said, in this next section, we're going to explore some of the data and how we can apply it during our school improvement team meetings. So data analyzing, it's key, right? It's how we're going to inform where we are and where we need to go. And in doing so, as Chris said, we have tons of data that we could look at in the district, but as a school improvement team and as school leaders and school community, it's important that we're looking at the right data, because we have so much that can really inform what it is that we need to do and where do we need our students to go. So we need to analyze data so we can be provided with a snapshot of what our kids know, where are some areas of strength, and where are some areas that we need to improve upon as a school. And then as we analyze that data, we'll sit down as a team and we analyze and interpret that data. Now, some school improvement teams, they all meet differently. Some school improvement teams, for sake of time, they have to do some of that work in the background. And some will also do that with you as a part of that school improvement team meeting. But just know, as Chris showed you, that circular process, picking the right data is very important as well as you're looking at school improvement, okay? And so here is how you can use some of this information as a parent. As a parent, we want you to know that you are the strongest voice that we have, and we need your voice. We value you, as not just as parents, but as community members. Because either you're representing your student at your school improvement team meeting, as well as other students that may be in your community. So you're their voice. And no one knows any better than you, your student, what the needs are, how they learn, as well as that can be applied to some of your students' friends or your family member that also attends the school. So you have that viewpoint that we don't have as school leaders, as teachers. Teachers have a great point, but no one has the better vantage point than you as parents. So you're valuable at the table, and your voice should be heard at the table. And we want you to be comfortable with being in those meetings and adding your voice. And we hope by the end of this session, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, because we're going to give you some tools and resources to help you with that. So at SIT meetings, you're going to we want you to regularly participate, and we want you to share and discuss things in that meeting. So we want you to be familiar with the data that you may see. We want you to know how to interpret that data presented, and we're going to show you some examples today. We want you to know how to use a protocol, and if your school isn't using a protocol, this would be a great opportunity for you as a SIT member to present the protocol that you received tonight, because it'll provide equity in the room. And then all of those things will help you to join the conversation, because the more confident you feel in your data savviness, the more that you'll feel that you can add to those conversations. And again, we need your voice. And so some, as I mentioned earlier, some school improvement teams will assess data prior to the meeting. And that's okay, because sometimes there's so much that has to be done prior to. But there certainly will be opportunities where you will sit with the team and look at data and data outcomes with your students. So it's important to know how the team created those goals. So when they created their school improvement team goals, what data source did they use? What did the data inform them? And have a way to discuss the data. Is your school improvement team using a way to discuss the data? And again, you know what to ask a question. And again, we're all going to join in on that conversation. And I did see your hand. Have I answered your question? Thank you. All right. So I've already talked about this, but I'll say it again. You bring a unique perspective into the meeting, and we hope that you continue to come into those spaces and feel encouraged and as a part of, because we need your voice. You represent your student and your experiences. You are always going to ask the right questions, so don't ever hesitate to ask, and this will prepare you even more to be able to ask some of those questions that really will get some thoughts going in a different way than maybe they weren't, and from your perspective. And then looking at the data from a new perspective, even as a parent. You know, sometimes you say, hey, I noticed this trend or these theme or this grade level or this content, have y'all considered this? You may bring some outside information from the community that you know that may affect a grade level or content area. Okay? So always give feedback. So I talked a little bit about a resource that we're going to equip you with. This is one of them that we're going to equip you with. It's called Just the Facts. The idea behind using a protocol when analyzing data is so that we get to action, as well as everyone in the room have equity of voice. So using a protocol, something like this will get us there and keep us focused on the topic, and it allow for a better conversation. And this protocol you can use with any data set. It can be used with academic data. It can be used with behavioral data. I know you talked about you do some work with your schools with SEL, right? So you can use something like this when you're looking at your data. So we're going to go over this in just a minute. I'm going to level set you to this in just a moment. So it not only can guide that conversation, but it gives us a structured approach to do that. And this protocol I really like because it's really simple to use. Let me go over it since it's here. It'll come up again. But in this protocol, you would start here. It's just the facts. You're not adding anything else. See, it takes away all of what we think, our opinions, and we're just going to base it on what the data says before us. Okay? So the first thing you would say, looking at the data, I observe or I see that. You would write that information. Next, you would look at some patterns or trends that you notice in the data. The girls may be underperforming versus the boys, okay? In the same grade level with the same content. So those, when we talk about trends and patterns, that might be something that you would consider. Just, am I making sense? Everybody with me? Okay. And I am surprised that I see. You might be surprised that you see the girls are outperforming the boys in science or something else that you notice in the data. I'm just going with the same example. I mean nothing by it. Okay, it's not something that I necessarily see. And then the data suggests that. What does the data suggest? Well, I see the data suggests that we need to increase the rigor because all of the students have performed above where they are above grade level, or they've all passed. So I see that this was a great assessment and all students have done well and met this grade level standard. How can we further stretch and grow our students? Okay? And we're going to come back to this in just a second, and we're going to do some work in real time in just a few moments. My colleague Melissa is going to take you through some data sets and apply this protocol. Okay? So I just wanted to level set briefly about this protocol. All right. So when you're sitting in those school improvement team meetings, we love acronyms in education. And we love to change them up too. As soon as you think you know one, you know, we'll change it on you. So we are going to provide you with a resource momentarily of some common terms as well as some key information for you as a SIT team member, okay? Some of those common terms, you'll hear admin. How many of you know what admin means? Don't look. Administration, that's it. Okay, AP. Y'all cheating. I'm just playing. Of course you knew that. When I first came down here, I thought they were talking about assistant principal. You see, because I'm not from this area. So it's good to level set on what they commonly are here. Okay, AVID. We've talked about AVID a little bit earlier. You may hear BMT, Behavioral Management Technician. It used to be Behavioral Modified Technician. So it just depends. Again, we love acronyms, but it's good to level set on what the current terms are. CSA, that's your Security Associate. CTE, Career and Technical. And EC, Exceptional Children. Thank you. Special Education. okay? And then we also have some other terms as well. And then we have a participant resource. And we're gonna share this with you because we have a participants folder that's a part of this slide deck with some resources that will help you as you're a part of your SIT team. Show of hands, how many of you sit in your students or family members' SIT meetings at their schools? That's awesome. You do not have to be a voting member to attend those meetings. Those meetings are public. Just want you to know, even if your school has not come to you and asked you to be a part of that committee, you have the right, and we want you there because you have the voice that we need to be in the room. Those meetings are posted in advance on your school's website. You can also view their school goals that will also be found on the website so that you can be abreast of what it is they may be discussing during that meeting. And you know firsthand what the school goals are and the needs. Okay? Yes.
I just want to say, anybody that's interested in being on an SIT team, being a team member, ask your school. Ask them if they need parents,
Yes.
if they need a parent, because a lot of schools don't have any parents that are sitting members and haven't had any. And they like to have that perspective.
They do.
Parent involvement is so important, and it's so not much of a thing at this point. And so, if you have a little time and because it doesn't take a lot of time, it's an hour a month for the meeting, and it's all teachers and staff. So they've been at school all day. They're some of the hardest working people. But if you're interested, just ask your school if they need a parent.
Or need more parents.
Right.
Because it is a mandate now that every school have a parent representative. All right?
Is this something that starts like in middle school or?
No, kindergarten or high school.
What is it, the PTSA?
Yes.
But no, this is the first time.
School improvement
little ones
team.
have started middle school. and
Yes.
started hearing about it
Every
now.
school has a school improvement team. Yes. Okay, thank you.
And some elementary schools will run who they elect to be parents on the school improvement team through the PTSA. But some do that. But like Lisa said, anybody can attend those
Yes.
public.
You don't have to be a member that votes. School improvement teams, they vote on next steps, what they're gonna do, what they won't do, budget, so on and so forth. But you do not have to be a voting member or an elected member to be a part of the school improvement team meetings and to add your voice and give your perspective. Okay? It's welcome.
Sorry,
Yes.
virtual meetings are how it's done a lot now.
Yes.
The past 3 years that I've been doing it, we've done virtual meetings at the middle school and the high school of it now.
Yes.
And, so you sit at home in the meeting and.
Right. You don't have to worry about going somewhere necessarily. A lot of them are virtual. Some good things came out of COVID. We discovered we can do some things virtually. So please, 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 please follow up. I can tell the lights are on, the ideas are going, how we're gonna follow up with schools, and we appreciate that because we need your voice. So what you have before you, before I go here, I'm gonna pass it to Melissa. Again, may I see this? So you just have some best practices as a school improvement team member on the back of this commonly key data term. And if you'll peruse this, if there's anything that you would like for me to call out or explain on that key terms sheet, please let me know or see one of us at the end of this session. Melissa is going to take us into some specific data sets, and she's going to use this protocol as an example in this space with us today.
Okay, thank you. So just by show of hands, so we know everybody that's in this space, if you have a little one in elementary school, if you'll just raise your hand. Awesome, awesome. If you have friends in middle school, if you'll raise your hand. Awesome. Oh, we got 3 or 4. Awesome. High school friends. Who are our high school friends? Hey, we love y'all. Okay. All right, here we go. We're gonna go into some data. We pulled 3 different data sets, one for elementary, one for middle, and then one for high, okay? First one we're gonna look at is an assessment that you may have heard in your house or in a parent-teacher conference. It is referred to as DIBELS. If you have a student in grades K-3, they take an assessment that's a DIBELS assessment. This assessment is a reading assessment that is gauging how well they are growing as readers, from learning to decode to then learning how to comprehend. This assessment lets us know students who may be at risk of not becoming fluent readers, right? So that's the purpose of this assessment, is to know who's at risk so that we can put protocols in place. So we want to make sure that we're giving you real-life examples of data that may be discussed when you're in a school improvement team meeting. They may bring up DIBELS assessments. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I had to ask before I forgot. How would you evaluate a disabled student or a non-verbal? Whatever.
It's a good question, and that's usually one that you wind up having with the school. And if they already have, if they're already identified within a program, that would be a conversation I would have with those teachers and with that school leadership around what does this look like for my child, if that makes sense. Okay, so when we look at this, I'm gonna point out a couple things, because usually when we go into schools and we work with teachers even, and we're like, hey, let's look at data, they look at this and they're like, that's a lot going on, and we don't know what that means, right? So let's break it down a little bit so we can then make sense of what we're seeing. So we see 4 different colors, right? We see red, yellow, green, blue. Red, just like usually means it's like stop, whoa, something's a problem, right? Whenever we see red on a DIBELS assessment, that means the student is scoring well below benchmark. So well below whatever the grade level standard is. And it's by like 2 or more levels. That is a really red flag, very 2024 term, right? That is a serious red flag for anybody in a school. We are looking at who are the kids in there, what happened, right? A lot of things start happening when we see red. Then we look at yellow. And just like those stoplights, yellow's like caution, let's look at it. We may be doing some things right. We may just need to do it more. We may need to do a little more of it. We may need more intensity with it. Then we get, and those friends who are yellow are usually close, but didn't quite make the mark yet, okay? Then we get to green. Green means we don't really see a risk. Where they're scoring is pretty much on grade level, okay? And then we see blue. Blue says we are performing above whatever the mark is, okay? So those are all of our colors. We see grade K right here, and then under kindergarten, I see a blank space. That's gonna represent the school, okay? And then beneath that, I see Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. So we have 2 data points. Yes, ma'am.
What's the mark? So you
Depends.
keep saying your mark.
Yes, the mark. So the mark changes depending upon your grade level and depending upon the time of year it is. So what it means to be green as a 3rd grader in CMS at the BOI will change by the time I am a 3rd grader at MOI. It's one of those things, it's like the video games that kids play where you always have to chase the mark, like it constantly is getting harder.
Melissa, BOY and MOI are?
Thank you. BOI, beginning of year. Thank you. Beginning of year. MOI is middle of year. EOI, end of year. Thank you, Grace. So when we look, and that, honestly, thanks for asking that question. And here's what I would say. Whenever you sit in an SIT meeting, ask the question. Because all the schools have the resources and can tell you, here's the document, it's public knowledge, it's on the web. Here's the document for what the cut scores are. So when we work with schools, we always say, please send this home with parents so they know, because I might be really close to yellow. I might show up as red, but I'm really close to yellow. And if my mom and my family knows it, and they know the one or two things they have to do to get me there, they got me. And they have the school support too, right? Okay.
It should also be on Power School.
What?
Their scores, those information, you should be able to pull it up.
This, but not the cut scores.
Right, no, not the cut scores.
These will be.
Right.
All right, so in here, we see 2 rows. We see the school. And then we see the school compared to the district for kindergarten. So let's just focus right here for a second. If this top row is school ABC, and that bottom row is the district, what do you physically see? Somebody, if anybody wants to say?
Well, I see that the school is underperforming compared to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg standard.
So you jump to trend. I'm going to bring you back to what do you see? What do you physically see that made you say that?
I see more red at the top than I do at the bottom.
Spot on. You see more red. We have more kids who are well below benchmark at that school than compared to the district. Solid. What else do we see?
Less blue.
Less blue by a considerable amount. By a very considerable amount. Yeah. All right. What do we notice? Let's do one more. What do we notice in first grade?
Getting better.
Okay, so we jump to that trend piece. What makes us say they're getting better? What do you see in the data that says they're getting better? Not as much red, spot on. Somebody said something about that green. What did you say, sir?
It's more green.
We see more green, spot on, right?
More better.
It's much better. So now I'm interested, what's happening? Because this school is doing something that the district isn't. So what are they doing? And that's usually where schools start leaning into and principals start asking, who's a school that looks like me that's outperforming me? What can I go learn from them? And that's where they start coming up with strategies and changing those school improvement plans and discussing it in those SIT meetings. Y'all are like the TD group. TD stands for Talent Development or Academically Gifted. All right, so, question. Yes, ma'am.
How do you incorporate EC children into that data?
They are in here.
They're in there?
They're in here. Now, here's the piece when it comes to any student identified in a student group. So this data, a school can disaggregate this data. That means take the data and break it apart all the way down to how are our EC, our students with academic challenges, how are they performing? How are academically gifted kids performing? How are our students learning English performing? That way we can always have a pulse on, is there a group we're underserving that we need to be aware of? And then we can check it, and usually that drills all the way down. Yes, ma'am?
What is
EC, so that's spot on, keep asking. So EC stands for Exceptional Children. Those are children who have been identified as having special learning needs, and they go through a process and they wind up receiving services that are formally documented. All right, so where was I? We were about to move on. You're good though. I appreciate the question. Keep asking it. They'll tell you I asked 9,000 of them. So please ask away. All right. All of this though, guys, winds up in that school improvement plan, because when we look at this and we're like, wait a minute, what in the world is going on in kindergarten? We're going to go right back to that school improvement plan and say, do we have anything in our school improvement plan to address reading for kindergarten? And if we do, what do we need to change? Because some ain't working, right? All right. So we see kindergarten has the least amount of students, 19% reading above grade level. A trend that we see in all grade levels is that more than half the students are well below. That is concerning, because this data is the data we use to gauge how well are these students going to do in third grade when they have to take their first EOG. We want to make sure they are well into green and blue before they get to third grade. Because at the beginning of third grade Anybody remember, what's that test they have to take? Anybody know the name of it? Anybody have a third grader?
Beginning of grade.
Beginning of grade, the BOG 3. It is a test that they take like the first month of third grade. And it says, here's like an EOG light. How well are you gonna do on it? Have you mastered third grade standards already? All right. I'm surprised to see so many third grade. Thank you, my voice is gone. I'm surprised to see that so many third graders are reading below grade level. That right there, if you are an elementary school parent sitting in an elementary school SIT, third grade will always be the grade level they talk about the most. It's first time taking EOG, and an EOG is a state tested, it's a state test. It is also one of the district's, you're gonna hear the phrase goal and guardrail. Third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade reading is a massive goal and guardrail, meaning it is something the district has looked at the data and said, we can do better, and we need to do better, and we're gonna set a goal for it. So every school in CMS has a goal targeting 3rd through 8th grade reading. For those of us in middle school, it is 3rd through 8th grade reading and Math 1 and Math 8. Math 8 scores are not where they need to be, so we've set goals there. High school, yours is around all your content areas, the 4 EOCs they have to take. It is also around, are we getting kids graduated on time, the way we need to? All right, let's look at another one. This one's middle school. So this one comes off of an assessment that we used to give. It has a new assessment that's replaced it that gives us very similar data. So this will still work. In the past, you may have heard your children come home, kindergarten through 8th grade, saying, I had to take the MAP test today. The MAP test kind of let us know where they were in relation to skills, and then we as schools could determine, are you in need of additional help? What projection can we make for how you're going to do on the EOG or EOCs? It also let us know up here if you were at risk. It was what we called our universal screener, a test that everybody takes, K-8, in math and reading, for us to determine who's at risk, who needs additional help. And so when students perform beneath the 25th percentile, right, nationally normed test, meaning everybody in the country takes it, normed across the nation, when students perform beneath the 25th percentile, we get worried. And we say they are at risk. It's a lot of gap. Grade level expectation varies on an assessment like MAP, or this year you may have heard your children say, I took the iReady assessment. That is the new assessment that the district is using as a universal screener. So again, when they're beneath the 25th percentile, we have concerns, and usually the school starts reaching out to say, we're trying to put some additional supports in place to support your child, right? Because they see it and they want to make sure they're responding correctly. We do not consider students at risk when they are above that 25th percentile. We believe that with really good, what we call core instruction, that means being really tight to curriculum and teaching to the standards, we can get your student caught up. That may mean your student is still in small group with us in class, but we can get them caught up, okay? So when we look here, where is the only place that we see green? What's the only grade level where we see green? That 84.6, and what grade level is it? Kindergarten. They came in, 84.6% of our students were not considered at risk. That means 84.6% of them were above the 26th percentile. And gradually over time, look at what we see. Downward decline all the way through K3, and then it picks up a little bit in 4-5. To be real honest for my middle school parents, Sometimes you see a little bit of a drop, just gonna be real honest with you. The second they go from 5th grade to 6th grade, standards change up a little bit. In the math world, we now have negative numbers that we've never seen before. We don't know what to do with those things. And so our assessments sometimes go a little backwards.
Is that the same data set of students? You said over time, or is it a school year of all the
This right
grades?
here would be BOY, so beginning of year. Across, this is the district data. So across the district, the year this was pulled, it is saying that at BOY, this is where our students scored. Now, how,
It's
go
not the
ahead.
same, it's not the same students progressing in grades?
No.
Okay.
Good, solid question, thank you for asking that. So she was asking, is this what they look like in kindergarten, and then the same group of kids in 1st grade? No. This is 2023-24. Here's how kindergarten looked that year, here's how 1st grade looked that year at the beginning of year. If you're sitting in a school improvement team meeting, what they're going to say is, here's where we are at the beginning of year. We're sitting in the school improvement team meeting to discuss actions to get these numbers lower and to increase the number of students who are performing at or above, okay? So that's the conversation they're going to engage in. I'm gonna skip through some of that because you guys did good with that. All right, let's look at high school. This one right here, this is a high school example because it's Math 3. However, this same platform and assessment will be used grades 3 through high school. Has anybody heard their children come home and say, Mom, Dad, we took the MVPAs, or we took a benchmark assessment? We started these last year. This year, some of our students have taken them. So if you have students in high school, some of them may have taken these. The rest of us, our kiddos are gonna start this test Monday. Monday's the first benchmark window is when it opens. They have about 2 weeks, but that's when it opens. This assessment helps us look at standard or mastery of standards. What that means is the state gives us standards we have to teach. And they say, hey, you have to teach positive and negative numbers, and kids have to be able to add positive and negative numbers in 6th grade. And they tell us, here's the mark for what that looks like. And then we take assessments based on those standards, and we determine how well our students are doing with it. When students come home with a math test or a reading test or a science test, those are standards-based. NVPA is a standards-based assessment. Why do we pay attention to this one? Because this one is supposed to align with EOGs and EOCs, because that is a standards-based assessment. So when children are doing well here, we anticipate them to do well on EOGs and EOCs. Because in the state of North Carolina, we can't see the EOG or EOC test as educators. We see standards, we know what the mark is, we never get to see the questions on the test.
What's the EOG?
The EOG is your end of grade exam, EOC is end of course. So if your child is not in a high school EOC course, they are taking EOGs in grades 3 through 8. Once they start Math 1, English 2, Biology, and Math 3, those are EOC courses. End of grade exams usually start the last 10 days of the school year. If you're a high school parent and your students are in one of those 4 classes I said, and they're in a semester class, they will take their EOC either in January or at the end of the year. All right, so in this one, what we're looking for is exceeds mastery, they've mastered it, near mastery, remediation. Beautiful thing about this assessment, you see our colors? They're the same colors, they mean the same thing as they did on Dibbles. So remediation, we're looking at 2+ grade levels behind. Yellow, we're close. Green, we've mastered it. Blue, we are above standard. We're performing above grade level. Usually when we're looking at this, we're looking at how close to a 4 or a 5, meaning EOG, EOC has 4 levels. You are either non-proficient, you are at level 3, a level 4, or a level 5. Once I hit a level 3 in the state of North Carolina, I am deemed grade level proficient. The difference is, about 5-6 years ago, they changed it to be college and career ready, right? Those are levels 4 and 5. That happened because the colleges came back to the state of North Carolina and said, you're graduating kids from high schools that you're saying are ready for college that are not ready for college, right? That is why a level 4 and a level 5 is college and career ready. Level 3, grade level proficient, by the state's expectations, you've met what you needed to be grade level proficient. But in order to be ready for college and career and all those things that employers are looking for, they're pushing for the 4s and the 5s. When we start seeing blue, we're hanging out with those 4s and 5s. Usually when we're looking at 3s or green, those are our friends who are 3s. And the push you will hear in a school improvement team meeting is, how do we get our greens to blue? How do we get yellows to green? How do we get reds out of red? Anywhere else, no red, right? Anywhere else. All right. When we look up here, what color do we not see?
Green.
Green. What question might we ask? Why? Right? I would. If I'm sitting in I have 2 children in CMS schools. If I'm sitting in either one of them, I'm gonna ask, why do we have no green? And they may have a good reason for it. It may be there weren't enough questions to come up with 4 different colors. If an assessment or an exit ticket only has 3 questions on it, I can't create 4 colors out of 3 questions, right? So there might be a decent reason. There may not be, and it may be the reason why the team is meeting. Like, what is happening in classrooms that's resulting in kids either very much so getting it or not? And where do we need to change instruction? And that's the conversation that schools will engage in, and you may be there for it. All right, when we look at this one, we see 35%, that's so small y'all can't see it, so I'll say it to you. 35% of students exceeded mastery on the test. A trend I noticed is that most of the students, or 64%, did not. That's concerning. That is very concerning. If you look at any data for a school and less than 50% of the kids are not meeting mastery, that's a really big question to have. What is changing with instruction? And then what are they surprised about? Surprised that so many students are exceeding mastery on the test, but no student level was at mastery, which you guys identified. All right. So evaluate. Is this you, Chris?
Yeah. Can you escape and refresh for me?
I got you.
So before we get to our evaluate, we talked about a few different things. We talked about the school improvement planning process, right? We talked about school improvement plan, the school improvement teams do that. We talked about the ways we use data and to drive that process. And Melissa went through some examples of the data protocol about how we unpack the data. Before we evaluate, what questions do we have in the room? Any questions? It's okay. Yeah.
We didn't really talk a lot about COVID impact when she was looking at that, at the data. So should that be something that we're asking when we're looking at the data for our particular school and we're looking at trends, should we be asking like what this looks like for COVID? For instance, you had kindergartners that came in and we have like pre-K now. But back, a few years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of pre-K. So should we be kind of asking those types of questions, like what's causing this and what COVID impacts that looks like? Because maybe our 5th graders and 3rd grade were in COVID. Maybe that's why their scores look different.
So COVID impact is something we talk about a lot. As time goes on, we are talking about it To your question about if that's something you should be asking, that's absolutely something you should be asking. If it's a legitimate question you have about why the data looks that way, I think that's always something you should ask. And that's always something that we need. To be honest, Melissa was pushing you when you were looking at the data and was talking about what do these things mean? And she said, no, go back. What do you see? Oftentimes, to be truthful with you, we as teachers need people to ask the kind of questions that you're gonna ask. We as teachers need people to ask us what does the green mean? So we can go back and have that real conversation that says, okay, this means children read at grade level or not at grade level. So I know that's a big answer for something you asked specifically, but whatever legitimate question you have about the data or you have about what's in front of you is necessary for us to work together to make the best decisions for kids. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
In the beginning, you showed us a slide that had the 5 indicators of, it's the 5 indicators.
Yeah.
And is that something that we can request our individual schools share? How they're doing those 5? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Let me give a little bit more context too. So the 5 indicators exist in a long, huge list of indicators, and there are priority indicators set by our state that our state says these are the highly effective things schools are going to do, and then we in our district, we have another layer of priority indicators that we say these are the effective things all of our schools are going to do. In your school improvement plan, which will be public, there's a public side of it. When you ask them for access to that, or if you ask them, they'll be able to tell you exactly which indicators they're using. So indicators drive a lot of the work, so they'll know exactly what you talk about if you want to see what indicator they've chosen for the school improvement plan. Yes. Great
So,
question.
Chris, to add, these 5 indicators right here, when you go onto the school's website and you click on their school improvement plan, you're gonna see these 5 indicators. Every school in CMS has these 5 indicators. Now, you may go to your school's plan and you may notice they may have 6 or 7. We do have some schools that have like 12, right? Because they just need a little more love and support to get where we gotta get to. And so the district has just asked, we need you to have these 12, right? But every school has these 5. Because these, when we just went to DPI training, right? And DPI is the people who make all the rules for education in our state.
Department of Public Instruction.
Yep, Department of Public Instruction. And when we went, the wonderful presenter said, these 5 right here, if you don't have these 5 tight, your school's a hot mess.
Yeah, I saw 2 hands. Yeah, here and over here.
So, when my daughter was in elementary school, one thing I always noticed in her testing throughout the year with Dibbles and with the map, and was at one point she would be testing okay, then she would drop, her scores would drop down to below grade level, and then she would come up, and by the end of the year, she would be at grade level or above. And it happened almost consistently every single year. So after a few years, I started talking to her teachers and telling her teachers, you know, if she tests like this at this point, I'm not gonna be concerned, it's how she does. And so I found it's extremely important to advocate for your children. If you know your child's patterns and anything you can give them, the teachers, to help the teachers see what's going on so that they can work with you is helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do in high school.
Yeah. And I know as a
Because we
teacher-
just got here, so I'm, it's a whole different ballgame.
And I know as a former teacher, we appreciate that context that you're gonna bring to help us understand how your child and our student is gonna grow throughout the year. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Hand back here. No more questions. We don't wanna miss anyone. Anyone have any questions? The only bad question is the one that goes unasked. Anybody? Okay, so really quickly, we are going to wrap up. Here on this document, there are a couple different things. So we talk about questions and questions you could ask when you're sitting at the table talking about data, when you're in those school improvement team meetings. On this slide, we have some options for questions that are just some sentence starters that could help you engage whenever you're doing that work. If you take a picture of this bit.ly, it's gonna take you to our presentation. So bit.ly/10-17, data is all capital. If you don't use all capital letters, the link won't work. So if you go here, you'll see everything in the slideshow. This link will take you to a folder with some question sims in it for you to use as you engage in the work. So everybody, you can go to this bit.ly, it should be public, and you'll be able to access those things. And the last thing we're gonna do, in True Teacher Forum, we don't end the session without closing and bringing all of our thoughts together. So I want everyone to take a second and think, and I want you to choose something from our board to think about. Think about something you learned tonight. Think about something that you may share with someone else tonight. And think about one thing you will use next at your school engagement. I'm really interested in something you'll share. Everybody take about 30 seconds and think about one of these things on the board. Screen, not the board.
Can they write it on the back of that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm gonna hand it over to y'all then, yeah?
No, I was gonna say, everyone, Robin, if you go on the sheet, everybody should have an evaluation form. If you could, complete that. And I know that tonight went by very quickly, but we definitely can get with this team to see if we can have like a part 2, whether it's a virtual opportunity or in person. But if you could take some time to complete this, and maybe on the back, you can answer those questions that Chris is asking to evaluate, as far as, 3 things you learned, or things you want to share, or things you need more information about.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
And we can get that to you
Could
guys.
I add one item to it then? If you guys are gonna write it down on that, if there was something tonight that you're like, I would love more information about, or like, as Letitia said, a part 2 session, our team does all of our PD tailored to the asks of the audience. So if there's something that you're like, we really feel we need more information about, whatever it may be, write it down. That way we make sure we're meeting the needs of what you guys need.
And if you did not sign in, please sign in, because what we'll do is we'll also send out that link that the team has shared. We'll send that out in a follow-up email for you all to send you information. So make sure we have your contact information so we can stay connected. And if we continue on with the part 2, you'll have that information of what we're going to do.
Perfect. So everybody that's on your evaluation form, and you can write about any of these things on the back. You can just choose one, and let us know any questions you have. We'll be here. So have a great night. Okay.
All right, well, I think that concludes it, our session for tonight. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We do have ongoing opportunities, virtual opportunities, as well as in-person opportunities throughout the year. So we want to hear from you on how we can best support your needs as families, because as the team mentioned, we want to make sure that your voice is heard and that you are aware and have access to all the opportunities that are available in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools.